This podcast is being recorded on July 8th, 2020. The pandemic continues, and the 4th of July weekend has come and gone, and more states are once again closing down, backing off from reopening as rates of infection have increased dramatically over the past few weeks. Those states that were eager and quick to open are now moving back to infection rates greater than when all of this started. So the 4th of July was unlike any other, and the traditional celebrations, the fireworks, family gatherings, parades, picnics, most were canceled. And on these long days, I find myself infected with an entirely different condition. Wanderlust. I love to travel. There are so many places I would like to see, and now I wonder if my urge to travel is somehow caused by a fear that travel will never be quite the same. Nevertheless, I can continue to travel whenever and wherever I care to through books. My travel reading has no particular theme. I just enjoy reading about different places and the experiences they offer. Sometimes I think reading of others' adventures can be even more satisfying than adventures of my own. They certainly are cheaper and safer, and at my age it's probably better to read of someone else cruising down the Nile on a raft than trying to do it myself. So let's spend some time today indulging wanderlust and thinking of books that revolve around travel. All of these titles are available on Hoopla, the free ebook service from the Wooddale Public Library. And just how popular are travel books? If you do a simple Hoopla search for travel, you will retrieve a list of 11,289 titles. Now, most of them, of course, are guides to every country and city on the planet, and those are wonderful resources if you know where you're going. But Wanderlust is much more broad. I want to go someplace, but I don't know where, and it really makes little difference. I just want to go. I enjoy reading of the experiences others have when they travel, especially when the writing is crisp and interesting. Those experiences are almost always fun, and even when describing the bad things that can and often do go wrong when traveling, they usually end well, with humor and goodwill. So let's begin with a trip along the iconic Route 66. The book is called Travel Route 66, and it was written by Jim Hinckley. Route 66, begins not far from here. The official starting point has moved a bit over the years, but there is a marker at Adams and Michigan in the Chicago Loop. The highway runs from there for 2,500 miles, Chicago to Santa Monica. And though parts of it have been paved over or abandoned, the road still contains unique roadside attractions, amazing landscapes, and fascinating historical landmarks. The highway runs through 8 states and is still known as the Main Street of America. Hinckley provides detailed descriptions of the many opportunities to experience the grandeur as well as the lost innocence of the glory days of Route 66. In addition to specific recommendations for places to visit, eat, spend the night, Hinckley presents history for the highway and its attractions, and he suggests detours and day trips off the beaten path, all while providing a vivid picture of the road that has long captured the imaginations of travelers from throughout the world. Now, about 85% of the highway is still drivable, and every year, thousands of nostalgic tourists move up and down that highway. Most enjoy just picking out a section and exploring it, while the more intrepid will drive the entire way from Chicago to California. Close to home, take the highway to Funk's Grove near Bloomington for family-made maple syrup. Have lunch at the Ariston Cafe, a small restaurant listed in the National Register of Historic Places. In Atlanta, just west of Bloomington, take a picture of the statue of a giant man, Paul Bunyan maybe, holding a hot dog. And when you get to Springfield, be sure to stop in at the Cozy Dog Drive-In, known for its deep-fried battered hot dog on a stick. And for an amazing overview of the history of Route 66, there is the Route 66 Museum in Pontiac, Illinois. So the United States has many trails to follow, and Route 66 is one of the longest and best known. But another one, shorter, less known, is the Nashville Trace Parkway. And a book by Kathy Summerlin, Traveling the Trace, is the story of this 450-mile trail running from Nashville, Tennessee to Natchez, Mississippi, and linking the Cumberland, Tennessee, and Mississippi rivers. Traveling the Trace explores the parkway and sites within 30 miles of either side of the Natchez Trace. Now, in addition to the well-known stops, the author visits side roads most tourists probably ignore or don't know exists. The book is actually a guide to 25 Civil War sites, 73 antebellum homes, 65 museums and art galleries, 78 antique shops and malls, 72 bed and breakfasts, 56 campgrounds, 175 restaurants, and 49 spots for water sports, and, believe it or not, a whole lot more. The Trace is considered one of the 10 most outstanding scenic byways in America, yet it's an attraction I was totally unfamiliar with. You can drive it, you can bike it, or you can walk it. It's a beautiful, historic trail. And just yesterday, I finished reading Gullible's Travels by John Carter. Yes, that's Gullible's Travels. This is a new book from popular TV personality and journalist John Carter. He was the presenter of ITV's Wish You Were Here from 1987 to 1997, and the BBC's Holiday from 1969 to 1987. It lifts the lid on the stories that never quite made it to the screen or press, sometimes because they had no bearing on the article or destination report he was compiling, but often because they could not be told for fear of the consequences, from behind-the-scenes mishaps to hilarious encounters with famous names. Now, the humor is very British, and some of it escapes me, but most of it is very clever and thoroughly entertaining. The author's career spanned 50 years, and he traveled all over the world for his work. He has many stories to tell, all of which he swears are entirely true. One of my favorites so far is the time he inadvertently became a tour guide for a busload of tourists in New York City, a city he had never set foot in until that morning. But with bravado and his English accent, he pulled it off with no one being the wiser. There are no real travel tips here, just lots of stories, very funny stories, about his adventures traveling around the world. Part of the charm, I think, is that most of his traveling was done before there was an internet, so arrangements had to be made the old-fashioned way. Problems had to be solved without a cell phone or a computer. Perhaps they never would have occurred in the first place if he had had those devices. But don't you sometimes find yourself longing to go to a place where there are no written evaluations all over the internet about how wonderful or how awful it is? I do. On a more serious note, Eugene Ammon has written a book called Secrets for Travel Survival. I do enjoy being someplace else, but as I grow older, I find that I no longer enjoy so much getting there. Navigating through airport security and the miles and miles of walking to get to a gate, the interminable and endless and unavoidable delays and cancellations, the cramped conditions in the plane, to to say nothing of crude and rude fellow passengers. It's tough to travel. This book does take a somewhat tongue-in-cheek approach, as there, frankly, isn't very much you can do about those things, but the author does offer some worthwhile and often entertaining advice. Consider these headlines. Terrorists have seized the airport. 80-year-old grandmother strip-searched by airport security. Flight 48020 has been canceled. Sorry, your travel plans have been canceled too. Frontier Airlines has declared bankruptcy. Delta and Northwest are merging. Murder in the streets of Niobe. U.S. dollar takes another dip in the world market, while in so many ways travel has become a burden and something to be feared. What will go wrong this time? What will delay me this time? Secrets for Travel Survival offers some simple steps to take that will increase your travel experience and maybe even elevate it beyond your expectations. And much in the same vein is a very practical and offbeat book of travel tips by Joey Green. The book is Last Minute Travel Secrets, 121 Ingenious Tips to Endure Cramped Planes, Car Trouble, Awful Hotels, and Other Trips from Hell. Yes, it's fun and entertaining, but it is also chock full of tips to make travel more pleasant, and these are tricks you likely have never heard of. I sure hadn't. The book contains more than 100 unique travel tips that may sound goofy, but really do apparently work. You will discover how to correct uncomfortable accommodations using everyday household products. You can learn how to uncork a wine bottle with a sneaker, protect your car from bug splatters with cooking spray, find your car in a parking lot using a hot water bottle, use a motel bathtub as a washing machine, ways to muffle the sounds of noisy neighbors at the hotel, purify and desalinate ocean water with a t-shirt should you ever need to. The tips may sound goofy at first, but apparently they really do work. And next is a unique travel experience that is only available through this book, I think. It's called The Prairie Traveler by Randolph Marcy, and it was written in 1859, and it's a guide for westbound pioneers. I've only read a few pages so far, and already I'm hooked. I think this may be a title for an upcoming History Pages book discussion at the library. He says, the author says, along with a good rifle and a sturdy horse, this guide was an essential companion for any westward-bound pioneer of the 19th century. Its author, Captain Randolph Marcy of the U.S. Army, spent most of his military career in the West, and at the invitation of the War Department, he shared the benefits of his frontier experience in this remarkable book. To today's reader, Marcy's manual offers a fascinating view of the rigors and hazards of crossing the country. In 1859, this book provided life or death advice on everything from finding water and building a fire to avoiding quicksand and treating snake bites. Marcy promised to assist his reader in escaping unforeseen disasters and maintaining relative comfort during the journey, adding that the intrepid pilgrim will feel himself a master spirit in the wilderness he traverses, and not the victim of every new combination of circumstances which nature affords or fate allots, as if to try his skill and prowess. Marcy's counsel encompasses choosing the best routes to California, wagon maintenance, and the selection and care of horses, food supplies, first aid procedures, and fording rivers. He also conveys information concerning the habits of Indians, including Native American tracking and hunting techniques, smoke signals and sign language, even battle tactics. And there are 21 original illustrations complementing the informative and entertaining text. And yes, if you were wondering, an ebook will contain illustrations when they are included in a book such as this. In all my years on this planet, I went camping one time for one night, and I will never, ever do it again. And yet, this book was fascinating, and perhaps it explains why I will never do it again. My next book combines travel with cooking. It's called A Movable Feast, not the title by Ernest Hemingway, but rather a compilation of travel and cooking stories by renowned chefs, prominent among them the late Anthony Bourdain. From bats on the island of Thai to chicken on a Russian train to barbecue in the American heartland, from mutton in Mongolia to couscous in Morocco to tacos in Tijuana, on the road food nourishes us not only physically but intellectually, emotionally, and even spiritually. It can be a gift that enables a traveler to survive a doorway into the heart of a tribe, or a thread that weaves an indelible tie. It can be awful or ambrosial, and sometimes both at the same time. In this book, you celebrate the riches and revelations of food. It's a 38-course feast of true tales set around the world. Now, this title is part of the Lonely Planet series, whose mission is to enable curious travelers to experience the world and to truly get to the heart of the places they travel. And the last book for today is an American classic, a timeless book that you may have read many years ago, Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. This book is available not on Hoopla but on Overdrive. In 1960, Steinbeck embarked on a journey across America. He thought he might have lost touch with the people of the country, their speech, the natural beauty of the country, that ever-changing pulse of the people. He drove a 3/4-ton pickup truck, and he was accompanied by his French poodle, Charlie. He traveled through some 40 states and created a stunning document of America as it entered the 60s, what was to be a tumultuous decade. If you absolutely must travel, wear a mask and maintain social distancing. If we all do that, perhaps next year we will again have the picnics, the parades, and the fireworks for the 4th of July. Thanks for listening.